Hello everybody, hope you all are doing good out there. In this video I'm going to show you a simple, easy way to minimize blade rub. Now I'm not going to say that this will fix it completely, but it will certainly minimize it. There are different ways that blade rub might occur on a blade. You can see this knife, the blades are good and centered. Sometimes the liner will be bent a little bit, or the blade will be bent a little bit, and it will be rubbing on one side of the brass liner. Whether it be the pile side or whether it be the show side, you will get some rubbing. If that's the case, you can try to straighten out the blade, which works most of the time with a stainless knife. But besides that, if it's just lightly touching, this tip I'm about to show you today will work. But sometimes, and the mini trapper is a good example of this, if you look at this spay blade, see how thick the blade stock is on that blade? And now look how narrow that little slot is that blade is laying in. When you grab this blade, it can easily push that into the brass liner. It's not that the blade is not centered good, this one looks good, but it's the leverage, because the nail nick is all the way to the bottom of the blade. When you push on it, it is going to wiggle that blade left or right, and it can push up against that brass piece as you open it. And as that happens, you will develop, I don't know if this one has any yet or not, it does have just a very little bit. You will develop some little spots on the tip of the blade. I'm not going to be able to pick that up, I don't believe. You can see it just a very little bit right there by my thumb. You'll develop some very minute scratches, and over time, over years, that can build up to be a pretty good scratch. Now that's not because there's a flaw in the knife. It's simply that the knife is as thin as they can make it. And for it to be comfortable in the pocket, they made it thinner, which means that the thicker blade may rub when you grab it. Now this little tip I'm about to show you is a simple way to minimize this. It will also work, as we said, if the blade is leaning toward one side a lot. It can minimize blade rub. It won't cure it in that scenario completely, but it can certainly help it a whole lot. So the tip here, you're going to need some duct tape. I usually use a toothpick, but tweezers would probably work. And I'm going to show you how I do this. You don't need a very long slot, a very long piece of tape, because it's only going to be touching down here at the bottom. We're going to place it on this liner. One thing you will want to do, though, is on the mini trapper at least, because it's narrow, you're going to have to trim the tape. And usually a blade is only going to be rubbing at the very top of the liner. Usually it won't be rubbing all the way down to the bottom, because blades normally get wider as they go up. So what we're going to do is we are going to put this tape on the end of this toothpick like this. I need to put that down on the very bottom of it. And now we are going to place this right inside here, right inside of this liner, up against this brass liner. And that will pad this liner so that it won't show any blade rub. So I'm going to do that. I don't think I'll be able to do that efficiently on camera. I think I'm going to have to do that off of camera. But I'm going to trim this down just a little bit more for this mini trapper. So I'm going to put this in there and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've pushed this piece of tape down in here. Then all you got to do at this point, make sure that it's down far enough that it is not sticking out of the top of this handle. Then all you got to do is just take your toothpick or whatever you're using and just flatten it up against that liner good. And after you do that, you'll have it in place. So here you see I've got this little piece of tape down in the liner here. It isn't sticking up above the handle, you see. It can't be seen. But you've got it down in the liner. Now, when you go to open this blade, that puts some padding on that brass so it won't scratch the blade. Now, if you push real hard, it might still do it. But from my experience, it just basically removes any chance of developing scratches from opening the blade like that. And see, that's a simple little way to do that, and it's a little tip. It works really well. Now, with a lot of modern knives, you won't have as much of this blade rub or the blade pushing side to side. We're going to look at this Kershaw blower for our example. First off, because it's got a thumb stud, you're not pushing the blade toward the liner. You're really just kind of pushing the blade forward on this one. So that's not going to be pushing the blade over toward the liner. The other thing to keep in mind is notice where you're touching with your finger. It's way up here toward the pivot, so it doesn't have the leverage to be wedging this blade left and right. The other thing is on a modern folder like this, because the blade is so wide, it's not near as easy to bend as these little slip joint blades are, or to flex as you're trying to open it. Then the other thing is your space. You have a lot more space down through this handle. This Case Mini Trapper here is a double-bladed knife, and it's about the same width as this Kershaw. So there's more room on either side of the blade on a lot of these modern knives. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But yeah, that is a simple way, simple tactic, a simple trick to minimize a blade rub. I do this on a lot of my trappers because I know that spade blade, when I grab it, might be rubbing. So when I get them, sometimes I go ahead and do this. Now, over time, if it's rubbing it hard, that tape will wear out. But it's just a simple trick you can do if you want to that can help minimize blade rub. Y'all have a good day out there and keep your knives sharp.